They say every trader fears the same monster, not the market itself, but that single moment when a winning trade turns into a slow-motion disaster. I've been there, watching green numbers fade, confidence crumble, and logic drown under hope. That moment when you whisper, maybe it'll bounce. That's the moment the market takes everything. But Jesse Livermore once said, "It was never my thinking that made the big money. It was always my sitting." And yet he also had a mechanical weapon, a one-point stop-loss rule, a simple, almost robotic command that protected him from himself. Have you ever ignored your stop just once, thinking you'd give it a little more room? Be honest, how did that end? Comment below. Every trader romanticizes the big win, the perfect entry, the massive breakout, the legendary profit run. But the real secret of market survival is mechanical, emotionless, almost boring. Livermore understood this better than anyone. He didn't just trade with instinct, he engineered discipline. He built systems that removed him, the human being, from the trade's survival equation. The one-point stop wasn't about the number, it was about psychology, the line that separates professionalism from gambling. It was his way of saying, I may not control the market, but I damn sure control the exit. So in this story, we're not talking about how to make profits. We're talking about how to keep them, how to make sure your capital doesn't bleed to death from 1,000 tiny emotional cuts. Because the truth is, traders don't lose because they're wrong. They lose because they stay wrong. And that's exactly what Livermore's one-point stop-loss rule was designed to prevent. As we dive into this, I want you to forget the fantasy of perfect prediction. Forget the charts, indicators, and market noise for a second. What we're dissecting here isn't a strategy. It's a psychological firewall. A firewall against hesitation, against pride, against that dangerous voice that says, just one more tick. This is where trading stops being about price action and starts being about self-control. The story begins in the smoke-filled rooms of the early 1900s, bucket shops buzzing, tickers printing numbers like Morse code from the gods. Livermore sits there, barely 20 years old, watching the tape like a hawk. Every time he wins, his ego grows. Every time he loses, he promises himself it'll never happen again. But there's a pattern forming, one that every trader, even a century later, still repeats. It isn't about entries, it's about exits. It's about that single ruthless decision, when to say, I'm done. That's what we're about to unpack, the hidden machinery behind Livermore's stop-loss system. Because what he built wasn't just a trading rule, it was a psychological shield against self-destruction. Market doesn't destroy traders, their own contradictions do. Every trader carries two minds. One whispers logic, the other screams emotion. One says, cut the loss, the other says, wait, it might turn. And somewhere between those two voices, your account balance bleeds quietly to zero. That's the paradox Jesse Livermore faced every single day. He knew exactly what to do, but he also knew that knowing wasn't enough. Execution was everything. The inner conflict isn't between right and wrong. It's between discipline and hope. And that's the psychological war no chart will ever show you. You see, traders don't blow up on bad trades. They blow up on hesitation. They don't freeze because the market moves too fast. They freeze because they don't want to admit they were wrong. Livermore once said, "The game taught me the game," and it didn't spare the rod while teaching. He learned early that the market doesn't punish ignorance, it punishes disobedience. Think about that. Every time you ignore your stop, Every time you move your line just a little lower, you're not adjusting strategy, you're rebelling against your own plan. And that rebellion always ends the same way, in regret. So, tell me this. When was the last time you broke your own rule and promised yourself you'd never do it again? Drop that memory in the comments. Biggest lie in trading is just this once. That's the trap. You tell yourself it's just one trade, just one exception, and that exception becomes habit, and the habit becomes destruction. Livermore called it the suicide of discipline, the slow death of consistency through small emotional compromises. Here's how it starts. You enter a trade. It moves against you. You hesitate. Your stop is close, painfully close, and your mind starts negotiating. It's just a little volatility, you tell yourself. It'll reverse soon. You zoom out, draw a new support line, maybe even watch a few YouTube videos confirming your bias, and in those moments you're not trading the market anymore, you're trading your denial. The loss grows slowly, quietly, and when you finally close it, it's no longer a 1-point loss, it's a 10-point mistake. That's the trap. The illusion of control, thinking you can outweight pain. Livermore said, "A loss never bothers me after I take it. I forget it overnight. But being wrong, not taking the loss, that is what does damage to the pocketbook and to the soul." Read that again. And to the soul. He wasn't exaggerating. He meant it. Because every time you break your stop, you erode your own confidence. And once a trader loses confidence, not in the market, but in themselves, the game is over. Have you ever hit that point, not of financial pain, but mental exhaustion, where you don't even trust your next click? Be honest in the comments. Jesse Livermore didn't fear losing money. He feared losing control. That's why his trading was built around mechanical precision. Systems that removed emotion, hesitation, and second-guessing. He understood that trading was psychological warfare. The battlefield wasn't the chart, it was inside his own head. In Livermore's world, the 1-point stop wasn't arbitrary, it was symbolic, a line that represented discipline itself. It forced him to face the market without ego. If a trade moved 1 point against him, that meant the premise was wrong. Period. No story, no excuses. Picture this, New York, 1907. The market is euphoric. Tickers are printing green across the board. Livermore is sitting in his office, his position long on a leading stock, confident, poised, and watching the tape flow like music. But something shifts. The rhythm of the tape changes. The orders aren't hitting like before. He feels the pulse slow, and within minutes the market begins to wobble. Most traders that day, they held. They said, "It's just a dip." Livermore didn't. His stop triggered, 1 point down, automatic exit. His brokers thought he'd lost his mind. But a few hours later, panic hit. The same stock crashed. Traders scrambled, phones rang, and margins collapsed. Livermore, he was out, watching from the sidelines, untouched. That single 1-point rule, that tiny, almost mechanical decision, saved his capital, his composure, and his seat at the table. He wrote later that it wasn't brilliance that saved him, it was obedience. He didn't need to be right, he needed to be disciplined. That's the real secret behind the 1-point rule. It's not about predicting reversals, it's about building immunity to emotional paralysis. Livermore said, "The only thing to do when a man is wrong is to be right by ceasing to be wrong." That's the essence of his entire career. The courage to stop, to reset, and to protect what matters most, his capital. And every modern trader, from the smallest retail account to the largest fund manager, still faces that same choice every single day. Comment hook. If you had been in that trade, 1 point down, everything looking strong, would you have cut or held? Drop your answer below. And this is where most traders fail. They want the comfort of control, but they don't want the discipline that comes with it. Livermore said, "It's not the thinking that makes the money, it's the sitting." But what most traders miss is that sitting refers to sitting on a winning position, not sitting in denial while a loser burns. He cut fast and held strong. That was the paradoxical rhythm of his success. Every point lost without control was poison. Every point gained through patience was capital. He believed the only way to master the market was to become mechanical, to remove choice in moments of emotion. That's why his stop rule wasn't flexible, it was binary. Either you respected it or you didn't deserve the next trade. Comment hook. Could you follow a rule that's strict, 1 point, no exceptions, no debate? Tell me in the comments if you think you could. Every trader has that one moment, the day they watch themselves self-destruct in slow motion. For Jesse Livermore, that day came when he broke the rule he built his fortune on, the 1 point stop, the law he swore by. It was supposed to be unbreakable, but even he was human. The market had been smooth, almost too smooth. His system was printing profits. His confidence grew into something dangerous, comfort. And comfort in trading is the silent assassin. He spotted an opportunity, a stock that had been moving cleanly in his favor for weeks. The tape was steady, the trend intact. He added size, too much size. Then the reversal came, 1 point down. His rule said, "Get out." But his ego whispered, "It's Jesse Livermore." He can't be shaken by one tick he didn't cut. He waited. That 1 point became 2, 2 became 5. By the time he sold, the loss had turned into something grotesque, not just financial, but personal. He didn't just lose money, he lost trust in himself.